was seeing my spiritual awakening journey as separate from my purpose. But now it's almost like I'm seeing it as, oh, my spiritual awakening journey was happening in order for me to step into my purpose. I kind of had this crazy revelation today of like, I've been seeing so much stuff in like the astrology world of like how we've been in this, I think some people said like a 6 to 8 year cycle, and that cycle is like coming to an end. I forget like what all the transits and stuff are, but it kind of made me realize and think back to 7 years ago for me, because it basically like sparked this revelation for me of like, oh, like basically 7 years ago I decided to move to LA and pursue acting. But like I've talked about this in like some of my previous videos, but basically what happened was like I moved to LA to pursue acting, but what actually ended up happening was like I ended up going through this like crazy spiritual awakening journey, because I also started therapy and meditation at that time. And basically over the years started to have a lot of my childhood trauma come up for me, and so was going through this process of like healing and clearing all of that, and as well as like other trauma that happened in like my early adult years and college years. And basically the revelation I had today was that, oh, like it's almost like I made the choice to step into that version of myself, or I guess you could say like my purpose maybe. And so when I decided to step into that version of myself back in like 2018, it was like it sparked the journey that I needed to go on in order to become who I was setting out to become. And I've it's funny because like now looking back, there's been like times within those years where I've like tried to start to go back into acting, and it just like didn't feel right or wasn't working. And I feel like it just kind of kept making me doubt whether that was like the right route or the right way, or whether I was meant to do something else. I started to like explore potentially doing other things, and but something just like keeps drawing me back to it, which I know a lot of people say that about acting in general, that like the journey is like kind of all over the place. But I kind of just realized that like, oh, like this whole journey, this like it's like I almost was seeing, like I thought my spiritual awakening journey was taking me in another direction. I thought it was taking me towards something else. Like I even thought like maybe my purpose had to do with something more spiritual. I see a lot of people on YouTube or doing other things that are more like spiritual based, and so I started to wonder whether like that's what I was meant to be doing. And I don't know, like today I just kind of had this revelation that like it was like it wasn't like a like I was seeing my spiritual awakening journey as separate from my journey to wanting to like step into my purpose, and become like an actor and a writer. I was seeing like, yeah, I was seeing my spiritual awakening journey as separate from my purpose. But now it's almost like I'm seeing it as, oh, my spiritual awakening journey was happening in order for me to step into my purpose. And so it's kind of crazy because right now, like a lot of things that are coming up for me are like, sort of like, well, is this even it? Like, is this going to happen now? Like, is this actually the time? Am I actually ready? There's at least like doubts and uncertainties and questions coming up for me, like a lot of doubt and a lot of like, okay, like is this it? Is this going to be the time? And like, is it actually going to happen this time? And it's funny because it's almost like I'm getting this thing bounced back to me of like, well, it depends on how like you go about it and whether you're going to actually commit to this and actually do it this time. And so that's also coming up for me too, where it's like, just because I step forward into this doesn't mean that like it's going to necessarily be easy or it's going to like look a certain way. That's something I'm also realizing that I need to manage my expectations around it, because that's something that I've actually learned during my spiritual awakening journey, I think, is like learning to manage my expectations about like life in general. And especially right now, I think what's coming up for me is like manage my expectations around my purpose and not feel this need to like pedestalize it in a way, and just like take it as it is. And so yeah, that's kind of like what's been coming up for me. And also like this feeling of like your purpose, it's like sometimes we make our purpose so much bigger than it needs to be, when it's kind of just like it is what it is. It's just what's meant to roll out for you, you know, sort of a thing. That's something that's been coming up for me lately too, is like I made it into like this huge thing in my head, when it's just like, well, what if it just is like it's just what's meant to happen, and it's supposed to happen in the way that it's supposed to happen, right? Because that can also like look like so many different things for different people, right? And so, yeah, that's something that has been coming up for me too. It's funny too, because it's like you always hear this. I think it's like also this realizing of like, you know, so many people talk about like manifestation and like law of attraction and like I'm living my dream life and all of these things. And like, I don't know, I'm starting to realize, at least for myself, and this might just be like me and my own perspective on life, of like um it's like sometimes it just like is what it is. Like what's meant to happen is just going to happen. It's not like this huge thing that we sort of set up in our head for it to be, because I think that can also sometimes get in the way of what's meant to happen, or like our manifestations or whatever it is. Yeah, and even like what's coming up for me is like this fear of my manifestations actually coming into fruition, and like well, what's going to happen, or how am I going to feel when it actually comes in, you know, or what is it actually going to look like, or you know, it's just like that uncertainty of asking for things and then having them come in and be like, okay, now what do I do with this, or like, oh shoot, it's coming in, like what do I do now, you know, sort of a thing. With me stepping into this new version of myself, it's like I feel this extreme sort of like sadness, and I think a lot of it is having to do with like grief of letting go of this previous version of myself. But I think it's coming up even more strong in this version of myself because it's been such a long journey, and it's almost like this is like a whole new, it's not just a whole new chapter, it's almost like this book is like coming to an end and this is going to be a completely new book. And that's terrifying and scary, especially when like you're so used to being a certain way, or you're so used to like life being a certain way. Like you've just like I've just been so used to being a certain way, you know. And like something else that's coming up for me is like, you know, I've kind of lived a lot in like survival mode, or like lived in response to the trauma that the trauma that I've been through. And so I think something that's coming up for me lately is like realizing that like that trauma isn't me, and my trauma responses like are not me, you know. So like a lot of like nervous system work, which has like been really intense for me personally. Yeah, something I've been like struggling with is like it's really difficult because like I feel like I'm a very intuitive person, but I've also been through a lot of trauma. So it's like that obviously affects me in a lot of ways, and my nervous system, and a lot of fear. And it's hard to differentiate sometimes whether it's like, is this my intuition coming up and telling me that this thing really truly isn't safe? Or is this my nervous system just not feeling like it's safe because it's something we've never like stepped into before or had before. So that's been like really challenging for me to navigate lately. It's almost like this sadness too of like that I'm losing a part of me, or I'm losing this version of myself, but I have to keep reminding myself that like no, these versions of myself are coming with me. I'm not leaving anyone behind. Yeah, so I just wanted to share those things that I've been moving through lately. I hope that this was helpful in some way, shape, or form to you guys out there. Yeah, I mean, feel free to share what you guys have been moving through lately. All right, well, I'll see you in the next one.